All right, so today we're going to dive into something pretty profound.
Okay.
And I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah.
Imagine like coming face to face with death, but then being pulled back.
Oh, wow.
Not just surviving, but like returning with a whole new understanding of life itself.
Interesting.
And that's what we're exploring today, near-death experiences, NDEs.
Right.
And we've got some fascinating research here focusing on the psychological, emotional, and spiritual shifts people report after these events.
Yeah, it really is intriguing how these experiences, often described as a glimpse into another reality, can create such a lasting impact on a person's life.
Yeah, it's wild. And so for you listening, get ready to explore those big questions about life, death, and what might lie beyond.
Absolutely. And we'll delve into specific research findings that shed light on how NDEs can lead to these really profound transformations.
Yeah, so let's start with the psychological effects.
Okay.
Before we get into the more mystical aspects, I'm curious about how NDEs impact people's minds, like on a very basic level.
Well, research shows that a common shift is a decreased fear of death.
Okay.
Many NDErs describe death not as an absolute end, but rather as a transition to another state of being.
I can see how going through such an experience could like completely reframe your understanding of what death might be.
Exactly, and it's like a shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Many report encountering this brilliant light during their NDE, often associated with a feeling of peace and unconditional love.
Interesting.
And this can fundamentally change how they view death, lessening the fear and anxiety surrounding it.
That makes sense. And it seems that this newfound peace isn't limited to just thoughts about death, right?
Right.
There's research suggesting reduced anxiety and depression in many NDE survivors.
Yes, it's as if they've gained a broader perspective on life's challenges.
Okay.
Everyday worries can seem smaller, less significant compared to what they've experienced.
It's almost like facing that ultimate unknown empowers them to handle life's ups and downs with greater resilience.
Exactly. And this leads us to another fascinating aspect: the spiritual awakening often reported after NDEs.
Okay.
Now, this isn't necessarily tied to organized religion,
Right.
but rather a deeper personal connection to something larger than themselves.
So it's more about a shift in awareness and understanding of their place in the universe.
Precisely. Many describe a sense of interconnectedness with everything and everyone, a feeling of universal love.
Wow.
This can lead to changes in their spiritual practices, like exploring meditation or prayer, as they seek to connect with this newfound awareness.
And this ties in with those reports of encountering deceased loved ones.
Yes, these encounters are often described as incredibly comforting, reinforcing this idea of continuity beyond physical life.
It's like death no longer feels like a complete separation.
Right.
One account that really struck me was a woman who described seeing her grandmother who had passed away years earlier.
Wow.
And she felt her grandmother's presence so strongly and said it filled her with a sense of peace and reassurance that completely erased any fear of death.
It's powerful.
It's amazing.
These encounters offer a compelling perspective, challenging traditional views of consciousness and what happens after we die.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, if consciousness can persist beyond the physical body? What does that mean for our understanding of life and death?
It's a question that has puzzled philosophers and scientists for centuries, and NDEs offer a unique window into these profound mysteries.
So we've talked about how these experiences can lessen the fear of death and spark a spiritual awakening. But what about the impact on everyday life?
Right.
If someone returns from an NDE with this whole new perspective, their life can't possibly look the same, can it?
Absolutely. There's a significant shift in priorities. Things that once held importance. Wealth status, material possessions often lose their appeal.
It's as if they've seen a bigger picture and realized those things aren't the true measures of a meaningful life.
Exactly. The focus shifts to relationships, finding meaning in simpler things, being of service to others.
This reminds me of a story about a businessman who had a profound NDE. And he ended up selling his company, moving to a small town, and dedicated his time to helping others.
Wow.
He said experiencing unconditional love during his NDE made him realize that material wealth paled in comparison to human connection and purpose.
It's a recurring theme, this shift away from materialism towards something more fulfilling.
And it makes sense. After experiencing something so profound, how could your priorities not change?
Right. It's a complete reassessment of what truly matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this shift in priorities often leads to like tangible changes in their lives.
Oh, interesting.
Like relationships become deeper, more authentic. There's a greater emphasis on kindness, compassion, living in the present moment.
It sounds like they return with a renewed appreciation for the simple joys of life and the importance of human connection.
Precisely. And this often translates into a desire to make a positive impact on the world.
Okay.
Many NDErs become more involved in charitable work, environmental causes, or anything that aligns with their newfound sense of purpose.
It's almost as if they're driven to share that sense of universal love they experience, to bring a little bit of that light back into this world.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
They've glimpsed a reality beyond the everyday, and they feel compelled to share that wisdom, that sense of connection with others.
Now, shifting gears a bit, I want to touch on one of the more mysterious aspects of NDEs that we hear about often.
Sure.
Some people report heightened senses and even psychic abilities after their experience.
Ah, yes. The reports of increased intuition and even psychic phenomena are certainly intriguing, though admittedly more difficult to explain from a scientific standpoint.
Right. It's one thing to talk about shifts in perspective and priorities.
Right.
But some of these accounts describe things that seem to defy our current understanding of how the world works.
While we can't offer definitive scientific explanations for these experiences, the consistency of these reports across cultures and backgrounds is compelling.
It makes you wonder if there's more to our consciousness than we currently understand.
Perhaps our brains are capable of accessing information and energies that we're not typically aware of, or maybe the NDE unlocks a dormant potential within us, a connection to a realm of consciousness beyond the physical.
It's certainly a mind-bending concept to consider.
It is.
Imagine having access to that kind of intuition. That deep knowing it would completely change how you navigate the world, how you interact with people, everything.
It would indeed. And while we may not fully understand these phenomena, they challenge us to our understanding of what's possible, of the true nature of consciousness and of the universe we inhabit.
Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to make sure we acknowledge something really important.
Okay.
We've been discussing all these incredible changes.
Right.
But it's essential to remember that the aftermath of an NDE isn't always easy.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
While many NDErs describe their experience as overwhelmingly positive, the process of integrating that experience back into everyday life can be challenging.
I can imagine it's like returning from a journey to another world and trying to explain it to people who've never been there.
Precisely. They may struggle to find people who understand what they've been through, who can relate to their profound shift in perspective.
And sometimes the changes they undergo can be so drastic that it affects their relationships with family and friends who may not be able to comprehend or accept their transformation.
It's essential for NDErs to find support groups or therapists who specialize in this area, who can help them navigate the emotional and social challenges that can arise.
That makes a lot of sense. It's easy to get caught up in the positive aspects of these experiences, but it's important to acknowledge that there can be difficulties as well.
Absolutely. And it's also crucial to remember that not everyone who has an NDE experiences these dramatic transformations.
So the impact can vary greatly from person to person.
Exactly. The impact of an NDE is highly individual and can be influenced by a variety of factors, including the person's personality, prior beliefs, and the specific details of their experience.
So there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to understanding how NDEs affect people.
That's right. It's a highly personal and unique experience. And even for those who do experience significant change, the process is ongoing. It's not like they flip a switch and suddenly become a completely different person.
It's more of an evolution, a journey of integrating this new understanding into their lives.
Precisely. It's a journey of integration, of learning to live with this expanded awareness and finding ways to express that in their daily lives.
It's fascinating how NDEs can be catalysts for such profound change, even if that change unfolds gradually over time.
And that's what makes these accounts so compelling. They challenge us to examine our own lives, our own beliefs, and consider the possibility that there's more to reality than meets the eye.
We've talked about NDEs describing a feeling of being deeply connected to everything and everyone. Do you think there's something we can learn from that, even without having an NDE ourselves?
That sense of interconnectedness is a profound revelation, one that can lead to a deeper sense of empathy, compassion, and responsibility for the world around us. Perhaps by exploring these concepts, we can begin to cultivate a similar understanding.
It makes you wonder what our world would be like if everyone experienced that kind of shift in consciousness.
It's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
Perhaps we'd see less conflict, more understanding, a greater sense of shared humanity.
Maybe NDEs offer us a glimpse into a future where we've transcended our differences and embraced our interconnectedness.
It's a hopeful vision and one that's worth striving for.
Yeah, it's a powerful image, a world united by that sense of shared humanity.
It really is.
It makes you wonder if maybe there's something we can all learn from these NDE accounts, even without having had the experience ourselves.
I think there is. The These experiences highlight the potential for transformation that exists within each of us.
Right.
I may not need a near-death experience to cultivate compassion, to appreciate the interconnectedness of all things, or to find deeper meaning in our lives.
So maybe it's about taking those insights from NDEs and seeing how we can apply them to our own lives, to our own search for meaning and purpose.
Exactly. NDEs offer us a different lens through which to view life and death.
Okay.
And in doing so, they challenge our assumptions and encourage us to consider new possibilities.
It's like they're inviting us to step outside our conventional ways of thinking and explore a wider reality.
Precisely. And in that exploration, we might discover a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe.
Well, I have to say, this has been an incredibly thought-provoking deep dive.
It has.
It's amazing how these NDE accounts can be both deeply personal and yet speak to something universal about the human experience.
They remind us of the mysteries that still surround consciousness, life and death, and they invite us to approach these mysteries with a sense of wonder and open-mindedness.
And perhaps in that spirit of open-mindedness, we can find ways to bridge the gap between what we think we know and what might actually be possible.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it. NDEs, while extraordinary, can also serve as a reminder of the extraordinary potential that resides within each of us.
And maybe that's the ultimate takeaway here, that we all have the capacity for profound transformation and growth. Perhaps it's simply a matter of tapping into that potential and seeing where it leads us.
Indeed. And who knows, maybe in doing so, we'll create a world that's a little bit closer to that vision of unity and understanding that NDEs often describe.
Well, on that hopeful note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into near-death experiences. It's been a fascinating journey exploring these profound accounts and the insights they offer.
Thank you for having me.
And to you listening, we hope this deep dive has left you with a renewed sense of wonder and a curiosity to explore the mysteries of life both here and beyond.